Sells Good Food project. We set up 2 years ago because of our concerns about the control that supermarkets and the big corporations have over the food supply. So we wanted to create an alternative food network that is affordable for all, is of best quality and supports our good health, farmers and food producers who love their trade. When free speech is under attack, people feel very isolated, and to have these events brings people together, makes them feel that their opinions, values and their ideas are shared by many. So we are delighted to be supporting James today. His values align with ours. He has been a lone voice the last couple of years, and our target market aligns very well with his audience. So we would like to work together to help create this new world that we're all entering, because I do truly believe that we are not heading into dystopia that is planned for us. So we all need to build our numbers, join together and use each other's skill sets to create a better world for all of us.
Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Dick Dellingpole.
Good evening, everyone. I wasn't expecting to be comparing tonight, but I've been doing so much of this thing lately that they said, you know what, you'd be perfect for this thing. So can you go out there and introduce the warm-up act? So I got an intro for my intro, and then I get to introduce it's fantastic. Anyway, it's great to see you all here. What a fantastic venue this is. And it's amazing that we managed to fill it as well. It just goes to show the caliber of the people involved and the special guests that we will be meeting shortly. But before all that, we've got Mr. Dominic Frisby, along with, accompanying him on keyboards, Mr. Chad Lalong. Now, Dominic has asked me that you should all sign up to his newsletter, and you can get to dominicfrisby.com, so please sign up to that. We know his stuff, but he always comes out with a bit of a surprise, so hopefully we're having a bit of that tonight. So please give a big warm hand to Dominic Frisby.
Ladies and gentlemen, and what can I say? I'm absolutely overwhelmed, and what an honour it is, and an opportunity as well, to be performing at the #1 evening for conspiracy theorists and the #1 evening for conspiracy theorists and anti-vaxxers in a church. I'm trying to get the joke out, but you keep getting. The #1 evening for conspiracy theorists and anti-vaxxers in a church in the whole of Tufnell Park this Friday night. There we go. So yes, so my name is Dominic Frisby, and apparently I look like a recently divorced art teacher that's on a school trip to Italy. So thanks very much for that, my friend. And accompanying me this evening on keyboards, we have the mighty Chad Lalong. So let's give him a round of applause. And yeah, I'm going to perform a few songs for you, so we'll get on with it, I suppose, is the thing to do. I've been reading a lot, ladies and gents, about tech and the things that tech's doing to us. And I read this thing the other day, that apparently Facebook, by your answer to just 5 questions, and you don't even know you're answering these 5 questions, is able to predict stuff about you with greater accuracy than your spouse of 25 years. And I found that a very haunting thought. And I was thinking, what are these questions? And I've been working on my own questions. And I'm just going to use you, sir, sitting. It's always important to identify the alpha male of the front row first. And so, sir, who do you think I should choose? No, I'll use it. What's your name, my friend? Scott. Scott, I'm going to ask you one question. And from your answer to that question, I'm going to be able to tell you exactly what your politics are. Okay? So here we go. Who'd you vote for? I think being in here, it's pretty obvious what one's politics are. Anyway, so ladies and gents, I'm going to perform a number of songs for you this evening. And this first song is a song that's had many incarnations over the years. And it's a song about how there are two sides to everything. And it has numerous verses, but we'll start with this one because it's you lot. They said it's an emergency. You cannot comprehend the magnitude, the urgency. The world's about to end. We must do what these experts say if we are to avoid extinction and oblivion. Act now or be destroyed. The end is nigh. This fact must be addressed. Nevertheless, maybe climate change is just a scam, a racket to exploit the average man. To get subsidies, grants and aid advanced, they say there's no solution. Really the goal is social control and to sell absolution. Maybe climate change is just a scam. Now this verse, next verse, I haven't done for a few years, but because it's you lot, I've got it out of the closet. They said it has its origins inside a Chinese lab, and that it's a conspiracy, a global power grab. They said, don't trust the media, it spreads doubt and it spreads fear. You're going to lose your freedom, it's all so crystal clear. A new world order, mass control, the great reset. With all due respect, maybe conspiracy theorists had it right. The nutters and loons on those weird websites. Endless tests, house arrest, censored if you get snappy. Going abroad was as good as outlawed. You have to wear a face nappy. Maybe conspiracy theorists had it right. They said he'd restore order after Liz had lowered tax. Competent and capable, these were the patent facts. Just watch how he would go for sure and turn it all around. The Tory party's fortunes, the country would rebound. Such a great guy, such a safe pair of hands, just you wait and see. Alternatively, maybe Sunak hasn't got a clue. He hasn't got the faintest what to do. About boats, immigration, house prices, inflation. You'll get more use out of blue tack. This centrist trot might just be a bot. What's the point of Rishi Sunak? This globalist man, the blob is a fan. He'll be a placeholder for Starmer. For those stabs in the back, now he's getting whacked. You've got to think this might just be karma. Maybe Sunak hasn't got a clue. We'll do one last one. They said our nation once was great, of morals sound and pure. Full of brilliant people, we built things that would endure. But something has gone wrong, we seem to be falling apart. Our culture and our institutions rotten at the heart. Nothing works, we've lost our way, long past our best. So I suggest maybe we should have let the Nazis win. They wouldn't have stood for the state that we're now in. The roads would work fine, the trains be on time, we'd all have a second language. No stupid pronouns, unemployment down, we'd have Hugo Boss clothing and luggage. Maybe we should have let the Nazis win. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. And just for clarity, that last verse was a joke. Now, this next song has got more chords in it than any song I've ever written. And to perform it, I need a lady volunteer from the audience to help me with a line. And I'm going to pick on you just because you're the first lady I sat. You can stay sat down there. What's your name? Hello, Michelle. And where are you from, Michelle? From Guildford. Fantastic. So what I'm going to do, Michelle, is when I say the word gammon, I'm going to point at you, and you just have to stand up and go in the most melodramatic way, gammon, like that. So let's just do a quick rehearsal of that. Yeah. 1, 2, 3.
Gammon!
Absolutely brilliant. Let's give Michelle a big round of applause. Now, I'm a big fan, as a rule, of the pig. I think it is a great animal, and there's a real sort of zen to pigs. And this song is in praise of the pig, and it's called Gammon and Proud. We eat beef and lamb and chicken, all kinds of fish and game, duck, ostrich, goat and venison, and others you could name. Out east I read once on a blog, they even like a spot of dog, but of edible creatures small or big, I say the mightiest is the pig. There are so many ways to dine, for which we owe the humble swine. Salami, ham, roast pork, chorizo, hot dogs, ribs and Wiener Schnitzel, sausages and chipolata, sugo alla matriciana. And let us not be mistaken, yea, the finest way to waken's to the scent of frying bacon. Pigs make the English breakfast full. Pigs are what made John Bull, with no pork pie, pray you tell me, just where would Melton Mowbray be? They even fought the Nazi plan by nourishing us all with spam. They gave the Indians vindaloo, the Chinese sweet and sour too. There's nothing that a pig can't do. How many Jewish folk do you know would let their great religion go just for a plate of prosciutto? A world hog roast could bridge the schism and end fundamentalism. After chops with applesauce, where's the need for hostile force? Yet all the lowly pig doth ask's a pool of mud in which to bask, a trough in which to put its snout. It eats whatever you hand out. What else can you say that about? In an age when it was no longer acceptable to mock someone for the color of their skin, to deride a middle-aged white man of an opposing philosophical persuasion, whose face reddened when impassioned. They called him Gammon. Yes, Gammon. You should have stood up. Well, shout it loud. I am gammon and proud, and I shall not be cowed by the baying of guardian readers. Shine, now's our time, brethren swine, for we are the porcine. We are gammon and proud. I may be older than I'd like and a little bit greyer than I'd like, not to mention much bolder than I'd like, but there's not a lot I can do. I drink more than I should and more frequently than I really should, and for longer than can be any good, and I've got a red snout. So shout it loud. We are gammon and proud. We are boar, we are sow. Let us forage our way to glory. Rise, rise above the pork pies. Come ye pigs, mobilize. We are gammon and proud. And so we come to the epilogue, as he wallows in his bog. All hail the unassuming hog. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. And my last song for you today is another one of those songs. I put it on the internet, and I wasn't sure whether to put it up or not, but I did. And then Elon Musk retweeted it, and it got 49 million views on Twitter. And I didn't make a fucking penny out of it. Do you know who won out of that trade? Twitter. Anyway, and it 49 million on Twitter, and a bit like the other one, 570 on Facebook. So there you go. But anyway, it's a song called We're All Far Right Now. Polite and smart and punctual, it once was good to be. You answered for your actions, and a woman was a she. You'd stand up for your people, if needs be, even fight. But now, if you uphold such values, then you are far right. Oh, we're all far right now, we're all far right now. Peterson, Rogan, Shapiro, E-I-E-I-E-I-O. We worship Mussolini, his portrait's in the loft. Must say Twitter, Heil Hitler, we're all far right now. Oh, you say you're in the middle, a moderate individual, a Gladstonian liberal. You once laughed at Donald Trump, you're probably a fascist too. There once was a great speaker called Martin Luther King. Said character's what matters, not the colour of your skin. But conduct doesn't count now, just your identity. If you should ever question this, you're racist, obviously. Oh, we're all racist now, we're all racist now. Off to the gallows we must go, E-I-E-I-E-I-O. Worse than Winston Churchill, worse than Enoch Powell, Ku Klux Klan and Jimmy Fallon. We're all racist now. Oh, the countryside is racist, dogs and cats are racist, eating meat is racist, Black Lives Matter's even racist. Do you know what's also racist? You. Leaves me out of breath. Found out I am dyslexic. I thought I was just thick. My son, he is dyspraxic. I presumed he was a dick. My girlfriend is bulimic. My mate's got OCD. My mother is bipolar. That gives me anxiety. Oh, we're all mental now, we're all mental now. Off to the nut house we must go. La, 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 la. Nutty as a fruitcake, demented and deranged. Cuckoo, psycho, wacko, loco, we're all mental now. Oh my, what is coming next? What is coming next? What is coming next? Oh my, what is coming next? We're probably all pedos too. Wait. Okay. Dirty little pedo, hanging around the Lido in a little Speedos, far right. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Chaddle along.
I love Daddy Paul. Go and subscribe to the podcast, baby. I love Daddy Paul. And listen another time, subscribe with me. I love Daddy Paul. Go and subscribe to the podcast, baby. I love Daddy Paul. And listen another time, subscribe with me.
Well, I am so happy to be here with all of you. And I totally mean it as well. In the expensive bit at the beginning that most of you were too cheap to pay for, but it was really worth it, I can tell you. Yeah. Seriously, they got the best of me. This is just the kind of the leavings. But I'll try. No, these moments are really special because I suspect that almost everyone here finds themselves living in a situation where they can't say the shit that we're going to say to each other tonight in the pub, in the bits in between. We're finally free to be ourselves. And most of us can't. I can't talk about the stuff that I talk about here at home. I kind of live this double life. I think most of us have the same experience. We've got one foot in normie world where we have to sort of feign an interest in whoever's going to be elected in some kind of irrelevant thing that's going on TV. And the real, true world where we know that Taylor Swift is a bloke. And we know about the dinosaurs as well. We've got their number, haven't we? We know about the dinosaurs. Oh, yeah, darling, we love your little triceratops. Yeah, it didn't exist. I like to get to know, I kind of feel I know you already, and I've met quite a few of you before. Hands up who's been to a previous live Delling Pod thing. Oh, so there are quite a few newbies, that's good. But welcome back to the ones who've been there before. Hands up if I have burned you on social media, if I flamed you. As I always say, I'm really sorry, because you know this. I am so much nicer in real life than I am online. Online, I take no prisoners. And the reason I take no prisoners is because you bloody deserved it. You shouldn't be wrong. If you say wrong things and annoying things to me, you get burned. In real life, I'm like a kitten. Like a lovely, sweet little... I'm not just a kitten. I'm actually a British short-hair kitten. You know how cute they are. They've got little sort of grey faces, little round faces. They're lovely, lovely. I'm like one of those. How many people here are working for the intelligence services and have come to spy on it? Yeah. You jest, you hand-putter-uppers, but I'll bet there are some people who are from the intelligence service. And I would like to say, I'm not trying to make you feel uncomfortable, whoever you are. Well, I mean, only a bit. But I would like to say to you one thing. When you get home after this uncomfortable evening, go and find a Bible, if you've got one, and read about a character called Saul, who was doing what you're doing now. He was on his way to Damascus to persecute some decent people, and something happened. And I hope that one day the same thing happens to you. Now, I had planned one of the more completely out there podcasts I did, not quite Jessie Zabota level, but almost. I don't know whether what was her name? Catherine somebody, or she deals with the really dark stuff, adrenochrome and sort of, Satanism and blah, blah, blah. And she had on her website, this really good prayer that totally covered everything, that warded off all the kind of the evil that was going to, potentially oppress her, when you talk about this stuff. And Dick the other day met this, about a year ago now, met this man, I hope he's here, but I bet he isn't, who goes round sprinkling salt around the whole area where people like us are going to meet, and it keeps the evil out. And I don't know about you. I do genuinely believe in this. I don't just sort of say it as a kind of comical affectation. I genuinely believe, in fact, who believes as well, that we are fighting above all a spiritual battle right now. I'm surprised by you. It's about 50-50, I'd say. I think it is a battle between good and evil. And I used to feel slightly embarrassed about mentioning subjects like Christianity. I'm not embarrassed at all anymore, because I think that this stuff is real and that one should talk about it. Anyway, I was going to print out this long prayer and read it. It really covered everything. You'd have gone home and you'd been absolutely safe. You wouldn't have been attacked by demons at all. But then it meant getting the printer working, and actually I was thinking it'd probably take up all the evening anyway. So let's just do a quick one before we start. I'm just going to say, Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive them that trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. And I'm sorry for any non-Christians that I've embarrassed with that, but I think the Christians will know what I mean. We kind of need these things. I think that they whenever you say a prayer, whenever you say a psalm, as I do every day, you are sort of slightly tipping the balance towards the side of the good and against the side of evil. And I think that my guest, who you're about to meet in a moment, might even agree with me on some of this stuff. One more question before I get him on stage and before we get the show rolling. How many people here have been brought along by their wife or whoever, and are sitting there going, who are all these crazy people? What am I? 1, 2, 3. Well, I hope that we succeed tonight in red-pilling you, or at least taking you some of the way with this. I think, come on in, the water's lovely, isn't it? Right. I think we should get the show on the road by beginning with the magic words, welcome to the Delingpod. And I know I always say this, but I'm really excited about my special guest. Welcome to the Delingpod, Mike Yeadon. Which side do you want? Okay. Yes. Now, Mike, I would suggest that one reason that we love you, Mike, is, and we do, is that I would guess there are quite a few people here tonight, the reason they did not take the death jab was because of you. Hands up if that's the case.
I wish I could have helped more people not take it.
Well, yeah. When was that podcast we did? It was right at the beginning, wasn't it?
I think the first time I more or less said don't do it was an open letter that I wrote with Wolfgang Wodarg to the European Medicines Agency, and it was 1st of December 2020, and that was the day my life changed. I've been annoying on Twitter, and lots of people think they do a pile-on. So, and then made things, and I wasn't used to what was happening, couldn't deal with it, but it was the day after I published that. The BBC put on someone who'd formerly fronted Newsnight to interview a woman from the Royal College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, and then they, on Women's Hour, lied to the public to say, I'm a conspiracy theorist. She said, I'm going to name him, Dr. Mike Yeadon. Complete rubbish. Here's the lady from the Royal College to tell you, not only is it safe to be jabbed, but you must go and get jabbed if you're pregnant. I mean, anyway, I managed to get them to take that all down, because I said, if you don't, I'm actually going to sue you. But
nicely.
But I think that's when I realised that basically the establishment is not going to tolerate me doing this. And I think it took about another 3 months before I realised the rather spooky thought that a few months previously, someone had held a meeting where they decided whether to murder me or censor me. Because several people like President of Tanzania, John Magufuli, PhD chemist, I'm pretty sure he was murdered. There's been an exceptionally large number of African MPs that all died in the first sort of 6 months of 2020. And basically, the people who are running this we won't see them, but the people who are like near to us, the idiots, people who work for the secret services, right? If you think you're serving your country, I mean, and do you really think the people running this are going to let you keep the money that you earn for ratting on your colleagues and helping destroy the society that you live in? You really are stupid. If you think this is just an ordinary job of work, you haven't woken up yet, so you're not very intelligent after all. So, and so when people have said, oh, you're very brave speaking out, I react badly, because I've said, if you think it's scary what might happen if we speak out, you've got to look at what's going to happen if you don't, right? Much worse. And once I realised how bad this is, and it took me about another 6 months to cross back to God, one vivid night. But once I realised how bad it was, I thought, if they do me in for speaking truth, it's probably better than if I do that rather than just creep around and hope to survive another 6 months longer in Hunger City. It's like, my wife has advised me not to swear, so I'm not going to, but I was pretty gritty about that, and I have no fear whatsoever, and I urge all of you to get over any embarrassment you may have and any fear you may have, because the controllers have made sure that people like James and I have a limited reach. I think the tech censorship is unbelievably effective. I mean, you wouldn't believe it, and that's why they don't need to do anything, because they know that what we say, that's like skimming a stone across the lake. We might think we'll get 9 jumps if we do it well. They've worked it out to be like 2.5, and then it will stop. But the people in this room, you are the secret weapon. Your family that isn't here, your friends that aren't here, work colleagues that aren't here or listening to us, you are the only contacts who know the truth. Media will never tell them the truth. They'll never hear from me. So bluntly, if you don't do it, we're going down. If you do it, they will lose, because they require consent, or at least just not protesting. So that's all it will take. And I think once you've learned one really significant thing that's just like so obviously awful, it's the crime against humanity, then people protesting, oh, what about this or what about that? So for me, it came from my professional experience and training, and I looked at these things called vaccines, and I thought, I can find multiple, independent, unnecessary, obvious mechanisms of toxicity, right? Multiple, independent, unnecessary, and obvious. And so, I mean, I wrestled with this for ages. And then it was like someone like me sat in a room and worked out how to manufacture these things. And then other people would persuade large chunks of the population of the planet to have this thrust into their arms. And so, you know, I was well on my way back to God at that point. Because if that isn't evil, I'm really not sure that we should just expunge the word from the dictionary if that doesn't fit.
So, Mike,
anyway,
can I pause you there, because you went straight from the kind of foreplay to the money shot in all that, and I respect that. I mean, you are basically batshit crazy like me. I mean, you don't pull your punches. What you talk about the bad things in the vaccines, which aren't vaccines, we know. No, they're not. Can you just briefly tell us the bad constituents?
Yeah, I mean, I'll give it a go. I mean, some people say, we're not even sure that the things they've told us are in it, and that's fair enough. But I can only deal with what they've told us they're doing. So, put simply, these are genetic, gene-based products like messenger RNA. It contains a piece of code for your body to manufacture something. And we're told it's a spike protein, but it doesn't really matter what it is. The point is, your body is exquisitely sensitive to what belongs in it and what is foreign. We all know about tissue rejection if you have a transplant, same principle. So when you're injected with this bit of code, your body will then go, okay, boss, you told me to make the thing that is encoded. It's a non-human protein. So your body will manufacture a non-human protein, your immune system will go, hold on, that doesn't belong in here. And every single cell in your body that has taken up a blob of that material and made the foreign protein will be detected and destroyed by your immune system. There's no way out. That's like Immunology 101. It's the first lesson, self, non-self. So that's one thing. That there are various toxic lipids that I think are intrinsically dangerous. Oh yeah, and then the shouldn't laugh, but the formulation, you may have heard that they're wrapped in lipid nanoparticles, just blobs of grease, a very special grease. I happened to know this, so when I saw it, it was like, oh my God. The particular lipids that they use are known to accumulate in the abdominal organs of animals, in particular the ovaries. So I went searching and found a paper like 9 years old, lipid nanoparticles accumulate in ovaries, an unrecognized reproductive harms risk. And it's like, you know, so if you combine the first two things, I've got 5 more, but you know, and others have got another 3 or 4. But these things, sorry to shock you so early, but that's what made me absolutely certain that what's happening is, you know, whatever. There's no way it's just to make a bit of money. It wasn't a mistake. You know, it's like someone's coming after us, and I don't think we should let them.
So you think it's obvious? So you come from a farmer background, but presumably from the kind of more of the sort of production side rather than the kind of in a lab tinkering with formulae side of it.
I was a research scientist, really, so I always say I managed to do for a living what I do for a hobby, which I like to tinker with mechanical things and take them apart, work out how they work and when they're broken, why that is, and how to fix them. Those are exactly the same questions as I was trying to deal with in research pharmacology. So how does the body work? What's different in disease? What could you do to try and fix it? And so all I'm doing is applying those skills to looking at the vaccines. And because of my training in mechanistic toxicology, how things harm you when they do. I feel like I'm looking over the shoulder of the person who made them, thinking, what were you trying to do? So I am 100% certain. I've also, a couple of years ago, I called out 3 of the 4 people who I believe are responsible, at least on paper, for these materials inside the drug companies. In practice, it probably isn't them, but I know the senior vice presidents or executive vice presidents of 3 of the 4 companies, personally. It's like, it pains me. These are former colleagues. So I wrote to them to tell them what you're doing wrong, and you need to resign or debate me or injunct me, and they didn't do any. One of them resigns, leaving their golden handcuffs on the table. One of them, a guy called Matai Mammon, left Johnson & Johnson without reason, just left.
What do you think he was?
I'm pretty sure I did it.
Full of shame?
I think he didn't realise. I think he was so
Really?
high, I think he'd not even thought about it.
Well, that's a result.
Yeah, exactly. But the other 2, I'm afraid, James and Mene, you know what you're doing. So even if, and in practice, it could just be the military's doing it and the drug companies are white labelling them. That's certainly possible.
But in your days when you were in Big Pharma, you believed, which I don't think you do now, you believed in vaccines as a basically good thing. You don't now, do you, at all?
No, I don't believe, no, exactly. So I was programmed like we all are. I had nothing to do with vaccines professionally, knew nothing about them. Interestingly, the vaccine research and development work, as far as I can tell in pharma, it's always on a different site from the so-called small molecule work. So it's like, oh, I think I've got an idea why that might be. So otherwise I'd be bumping into them in the coffee queue. And I would have worked it out. But because it was in a place hundreds or thousands of miles away, and I had no reason to be involved professionally, I just rolled up and got my jabs, had my children injected. So yeah, I think just a little observation. Let's just see if this rings true. There's only one category of products from the biopharmaceutical industry that you cannot question or challenge. It's vaccines. You can challenge individual drug categories like statins, or an individual compound like atorvastatin or Lipitor. People may not like you, but you can do it. You don't automatically get fired. But if you raise a question about a jab, you will find your professional body will fall on you, even if your professional body is architecture. Seriously, try it, any of you in one of the professions. You don't need to be a doctor or a scientist. If you're in a profession, your regulatory body will fall on you like a ton of bricks. And why could this possibly, how does this possibly make sense? And so this is one of the many pennies that dropped for me over the last couple of years. The reason it's only one category of product you cannot question or criticize is when they were first invented, they had this era in mind for them. I don't think they've ever been useful. I think the very first idea, some clever people, maybe it was the 17th century, thought in the future it'd be quite useful to be able to access the bodies of the people. And I think they've always been for that future. See, now I'm a completely crazy conspiracy theorist.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I sincerely believe what I just said is true, because nothing else fits quite as well as that. That's what scientists do. You keep jiggling, looking for fit, and that doesn't fit. But everything fits with that story.
What was the particular thing? So quite early on, you were, these things are bad because they're being rushed out, and vaccines normally take much longer to bring out.
Any medical product would take longer than they were taking.
Yeah. So you smelled a rat there.
Yeah.
But what was it that made you go full Delingpole, as it were, and made you realise that all vaccines? What was the prompt?
I think I don't think I got there in one go. In fact, yeah, I mean, I initially just focused on we were being lied to. I knew people on the TV. I've been around long enough that, people who were in public health positions and would appear on your television, I probably worked with them at some point 30 or 40 years ago. And you get to recognize whether people are telling you lies on the telly. And so from the earliest time, like in February or January of 2020, it's like, why are you lying to me, Pat? You know, so and what I say to people, once you spot the authorities lying to you, making one serious lie, why would you believe anything else they ever said? So so right from that earliest point, I was highly attuned to what are they up to. But you know, the thing that pushed me into being very concerned about the vaccine was because I just thought they're never going to do this. They're telling us it'll be around the end of the year. I remember saying to my wife, it'll take 5 or 6 years because that's how long it takes.
Yeah.
I have friends in manufacturing who've spent longer in manufacturing than I have in research, and they've said that the development of the methods alone to work out whether you've got what you say after all the steps of manufacture takes about 2 years, just the methods, right? So if you've decided to make something, it will take you 2 years before you've got all of the tests and methods validated and agreed. The whole thing was done in 11 months. It was clearly nonsense. So they either made them beforehand, which means it was nothing to do with a so-called infectious disease event, or they, to help with the torpedoes, and just threw whatever they wanted into the vials. Neither of those are acceptable. So I knew that once I realized they weren't actually going to authorize them, which they didn't really, that's the idea that we have, that our regulators have authorized them, that's not true. They're not even classified as medical products. They are classified as covered countermeasures in the States, and they are not authorized by the FDA. They are dispensed according to the Health and Human Services Secretariat, which is part of the Department of Defense. So they're not medical products. But in 2020, I thought they were. And so when I could see they were going to they were coming at us, I thought, this can only be malign.
But you know what that means? The fact that you, difficult, tricky Mike Yeadon, who just won't take any shit, if it took you until now to work out that vaccines don't work, never have worked, ever, does that not mean that there could be lots of people working in the pharmaceutical industry who remain that ignorant?
Oh, I'm sure that's true. I think without the stimulus of this event, it's felt like a PhD. My PhD was done in 3 years. We're in 4.5 years in, and I'm still learning. So, I'm sure most of my colleagues still think what I thought was true. They still think it's true.
They still believe in vaccines, and they still believe in the COVID.
Probably. I mean, that was just utterly bizarre, isn't it? It's just, I don't know. Mostly I sense people just want to move on. It's just, you can't move on. This is act one of a multi-act play that, if we let them, finishes with total loss of freedom.
Yeah.
Digital totalitarian tyranny, and it's so easy. Just dispense with money and give you only digital money, which most of you are using only digital money unless you heeded the call to only use cash. So digital money is so convenient. All they need to do is blow up cash, which they could do in one of half a dozen ways, plausibly. And the other one is make it a requirement that you carry and present digital ID, a single global new format of digital ID. That's all they need. If they've got those two things, they can say, Mike, we've just heard there's a pandemic, and don't worry, in 90 days, the pharmaceutical industry will have a jab, and you will be taking it, or your digital ID will become invalid. And without that, you won't be able to spend any of your digital money or move anywhere. So so I've said to people, I think signing up for and using digital ID is the entry door to the global murder machine. And if you stay outside of it, there's a chance. If you enter it, you can't leave, because now everything is tied. Literally, you won't be able to move, access cash, fill your car, do anything. They'll say, beep your digital ID. Oh, it's not valid. What do you mean it's not valid? Oh, you haven't had the latest jab. So, and all the jabs coming at us are mRNA-based. I know for certain they are designed to injure, kill, and reduce fertility in survivors. So I'm sorry, if you weren't there already, I noticed there weren't a full wave of hands. I thought more people would be maybe as far down the rabbit hole as I am, but it's so simple to see it, isn't it?
It's given to few, Mike, I have to say. There's very few people who are quite this batshit level.
You were a normie too.
We're
weren't
probably
you?
a 10.
Yeah. But where
and-
were you in normie land? Complete normie?
I was, apart from my climate change thing,
Oh yeah, you did. The
and I've just been rereading Watermelons, because I'm trying to do a revised edition, which everyone's waiting for, because I'm being really slow and it's annoying. And I read the last chapter that I wrote in one of the revised editions from 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And it said, there is a cabal of,
Yes. Powerful people.
of very rich people who want to kill you and enslave you and stuff. But when I wrote it, I was kind of writing it jokily. I kind of didn't really believe what I was writing. So I would say that I was pretty much a normie in those days. And one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you...
I was even more normie than you. 41 years of listening to BBC Radio 4 in the morning. 41 years. I was a teenager, for God's sake, buying the Times in my 20s until my early 60s. So I watched Newsnight 5 nights a week, fall asleep. I don't think you could have found a much more normie person than me. And yet,
I salute you. I really salute you.
and the thing is, half my family, my dear wife, who from the earliest days when I was saying, you know, this and that, she said, I believe you, but how come no one else is saying it? And it's only later we realized that people were frightened or censored. But people who aren't close to me, I've got family all around the world, the ones that are not in this country, to a man and a woman, all think and have said to each other, Mike has literally lost his mind.
Yeah.
And I've spoken to some of them and I've explained it very clearly in writing and verbally. And it's just, no, you're completely crazy, Mike. I never thought my brother would lose it completely like you have, but, well, good luck, That's my sister Jane. She emigrated in 79. And she's been multiply jabbed. And there you go.
I wanted to move on to the really depressing stuff a bit later on. I thought what we'd do is just cover off the vaccine things, because there'll be some people here who this is the first time they've encountered you, so they want the benefit of your wisdom. I was given a list of questions, some of which I'm not going to ask, some of them which are quite rude. I'm not going to answer those.
You won't be able to shock me. I'm no longer shocked.
No, they were rude about me. One was picking a fight with me. And
I don't give a flying what.
that.
If people don't like what I'm saying or don't believe me, that's fine. Go off and do whatever you want. I don't get anything from you believing me. So I broadcast, and then you do with it what you will.
One of the questions was from somebody saying, my office is full of pregnant women, and only one has had a stillbirth or whatever.
Well, great.
How do you explain that, given that it's supposed to be making everyone infertile?
I never said it was making everyone infertile. In fact, I said early on that I thought it was although there are these multiple, independent, unnecessary and obvious mechanisms of toxicity, no one could say, apart from the people actually doing it, and maybe not even them, how many people, what percentage of people it would harm. So, for example, we know alcohol is poisonous. If you take an amount equivalent to 1 glass of wine, most of you will be okay. Some will be a little tipsy and others not. If you take a bottle of Scotch worth of alcohol, most of you will be severely ill and some might actually die. So we've established, have we not, that there's a dose-response curve. Same with this material. I had no way of knowing whether they thought 1 in 1,000 would die or 1 in 3. So I've never said that everyone will be infertile. What I did say is they are establishing this technology, and it will be used in the future repeatedly in order to erode the population. That's what I said in early 21, and I still think that's true 3.5 years later. Yeah. That's why they're opening factories to make mRNA vaccines all around the world. And I've been joined recently by several, as a professor in Japan, who said exactly the same thing. They're going to use Japan's good name to fool you into thinking these are of good quality. But I'm telling you, he said, I visited the factories and they will injure and kill you. So I'm not alone. And I wish I wasn't right, but no one has rebutted it. So what I'm saying is so simple that if I was wrong, I would have some scientists writing to me or just publishing. This guy's come up with these mad ideas. This is why he's wrong. No one's done that. So, there you go.
Well, thank you for dealing with that one, because it's something I think a lot of us get. Those of us who were saying early on, don't take the vaccine.
Don't take the vaccine.
Don't take the vaccine. We get it thrown in our face. We get, well, you said that half the world would be dead by now, and they're not.
No, I never said that.
And they're disappointed, aren't they, that more people haven't died, because or they're happy because it means that we're wrong. That's the most important thing.
No, exactly. But there's no getting away from the fact that people were lied to because there was not a pandemic, in my view, not a virus. There was no public health emergency. All the laws were changed to facilitate these dangerous materials to get approval, emergency use authorization. And then they were just lying to you about that because it was going around the back via military countermeasures allowed in a public emergency, in a national emergency.
Yeah.
So there was, and this goes back like 25 years, 50 years. It's like there's no getting away from it. Unfortunately, the mounting horror is, and then now I'm completely relaxed about it. It's like, okay, I've got used to the fact there's 0.01% of humanity have spent their entire life, like mum and grandma and granddad and great-grandfather before them, working out how to lasso us useless eaters. And this is one of the things they're doing, and I am blessed to be able to spot this particular part of the in-dimensional chess game. It's like, okay, that's what they're doing. So,
somebody, this is a question you're bound to get asked a lot, but understandably. Somebody said, my children and grandchildren were all vaccinated. Have you come upon any ways of undoing the damage of these?
No, I haven't. This isn't an area I've looked at in particular. I'm not a medical doctor. I'm a PhD scientist, so I haven't. I don't know.
Yeah.
But these recent jabs are not like.
They're not
like previous material. Previous materials were plausible. If you believed in the virus causes the disease story, then the design of the old style vaccines, I think, made sense. That's because they told us that they grew up some of that organism and they weakened it or killed it with heat or chemicals.
But that was all a lie as well, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. But it's because the infectious agents aren't there at all.
You've read that book, haven't you? The one tells you about how they made smallpox vaccines.
No, I don't think I've read that
from,
one. But
from corpses of
really?
Yeah, sort of from plague ships, and they sort of got the pustules from the dead bodies. And
sounds like they really thought that it would work, even though it's a gross thing to do. But as I say,
it's horrible.
I'm not trying to be right about everything. But I'm confident enough about a small number of things that is absolutely no doubt that, whatever. If we let them, the worst will come.
Do you think that any vaccine has worked for anyone ever?
I think it's unlikely. I mean, I can't be. Why would I even want to be absolutist about such a statement? Science is politicians make absolute statements, even though everything is vague. Scientists are expected to make digital answers whereas they recognize most things are vague. So I think it is unlikely, but I could be surprised and find that tetanus, for example, does the tetanus vaccine work? I don't know. Could it work? Yeah, it probably could. It could, but I've not researched that one because it's not against an organism but against a toxin, apparently. But yeah, exactly. I'm not promoting anything.
Maybe if the tetanus jab was delivered by the horn of a magical unicorn, then it might work.
Anyway, I think it's unlikely.
I heard you hint.
Again, people often, they want me to say absolute things, and I say, why do you want me to say it? It's like, well, because you're Dr. Mike Yeadon, former Chief Scientific Officer of Pfizer. So, right. So you want me to say something I'm not 100% sure of because other people will believe it. It's like, get out of here. That's not what I'm going to do. So I'm absolutely certain acute respiratory illnesses are not infectious or contagious. There's 100 years of evidence to say that. And I've not persuaded my wife completely of this, but I am sure of it. So when they tell you there's bird flu going around, it's like, no, there isn't. They may well be ill, but they're not, poor little sweetie pie is not going to cough up some pathogen and make you sick. It's a psyop. It's an absolute psyop. You're more likely to catch dolphin influenza.
Wow.
So I'm certain about that because I've read the bloody literature. I've read the 100 years of literature that says that attempts to transmit, people who've got colds, they put them in rooms with people who didn't have colds and then follow them for several weeks. And did the same experiment by putting 2 healthy people in a room. And the question was, how many of the recipients in each case would get sick? And you'd be pretty sure, wouldn't you, that if colds were transmissible, that more people would get cold symptoms in the next few weeks if they sat for an hour or 2 with someone with a cold. They don't. It's been published about 40 times. So, sorry, that's your mental model. It's wrong.
So you can't catch a cold?
No. And when people they go, oh no, well you say that, Dr. Yeadon, but I know that I had a cold and I definitely caught it from the guy in the office. It's like, I put it to you, I have thought about this because it's not incumbent on me to come up with an explanation, right, that for how they do work, given I've shown you that you're being lied to. But I just think it's easier if I give you some suggestions. Common colds are sufficiently common that if you have one, it's not that unlikely that someone known to you, family member or friend, will also get a cold in the next short period of time. And when that happens, the person who got it second thinks they got it from you. All right? It's consistent with contagion, but it isn't. The other one is whatever it is that causes these acute symptoms. I think there will be an environmental contribution. Maybe it's too hot, too cold, too dry, too much pollen, or whatever it is. Well, you and that person that you think you got it from shared some of that environment or some of the food. So I think it's coincidence and shared environments. That's what explains contagion. And then here's the other one. Oh, well, you say that it was all put on, but I had the worst flu I'd ever had in my life in 2020. It's like, how do you explain that? And for a while I couldn't, but I can explain that. I can explain it. Most of us have something called influenza. It's like a description. Quite rarely in our life. I've had it twice. I'm 64. And I've asked around, and most people it's like 1 to 3. So just imagine now, let's say you've had 3 and you're 60, and you get flu in 2020. What's the chances it will be the worst flu you've ever had? It could be milder to what you've had before, about the same, worse. And I think it's just throwing the dice. And I think a significant minority of people who had flu in 2020 legitimately could say, because it was true, this was the worst flu I'd ever had. So you see, that's the explanation. And that means no matter how many times you hear that anecdote, and however true it is, it provides you with no evidence whatsoever there was something new in the environment. It's funny that, anyway, so I have now satisfied myself about viruses and colds and flu and contagion. And when people say, what about Black Death? It's like, I don't know. I don't give a monkeys about Black Death. I'm not going to think about that. What's measles then? I don't know. Next. It's like, it's not my job to provide education for the world. I've told you, you're being lied to about COVID and you're being lied to about bird flu. And they're trying to persuade you to give up your freedom and let them stab toxins in you. Isn't that enough? Do you want to deal with that?
Yeah. So you've actually gone halfway to answering my next question, which is basically, have you now moved into the no virus camp?
Yeah, I think it's,
Tell us why.
I was helped by somebody who had recently made the transition, and he said, you don't have to go into a position of saying, I don't believe in viruses. You can say, because it's true, that there is no convincing evidence for the presence of them. And I've not seen any convincing evidence for the presence of them, right? So that's, now again, don't force me to do the religious bit, but do you swear that viruses don't exist? It's like, I'll just tell you what I just told you. I've seen no evidence for them. And they belong in the same category as goblins under your table, leprechauns and unicorns. Although some people think unicorns existed.
Well, be careful about this.
Yeah, I have to be a bit careful. A lot of these things, In fact, I'm now going to block my copybook by saying, of all the conspiracy theorists you hear, I rule out none of them. Right? Because the trouble is, whenever I've gone in close to look at them, the bloody things have come true.
I'm glad you said that, Mike. Yes. So I'm going to ask you about.
I'm really upset about the dinosaurs.
There's a few coming up. Don't you worry about that. So because lots of people get really worked up about the no virus. You know, they're either team terrain or they're team virus.
I don't join anything. It is staggering to me in retrospect that I had a career in corporate. How the hell did I manage that? And I think it's because I'm inherently quite a nice person. I don't like to wound people, or if I knew I was going to have to do something like ending a project that I knew would upset people, I would work really, really hard to try and smooth over the water, try and find some other focus for their attention and so on. So that's how I managed to do it, I think. Because if I'd been more disagreeable, my own internal processes of I don't tend to join things, I would not have managed to be. I'm not that good a team player. I'd sort of put it on. and the reason I don't join things is it's so constraining. So if you join Team No Virus fully, there's like 6 edicts or whatever, things you have to...
Yes.
And I don't like that, because what happens if I wake the next day and think, I've thought of something else that doesn't fit? It's like, then this is what happens. I think people end up, they've jumped from one lily pad to another. And what you should do is think. Just don't join anything. Just be nice, but think. That's all you should do. Actually, it's something I need to mention that I've only learned in the last 3 weeks, and so you probably won't have heard it. But it all fits when I say it. You know that there was a Team Hero, the alternative media people, not me, people who are 100 times more famous around the world. I won't mention them at this particular point, but you all know who I'm thinking, so many doctors who are Americans. Yes. And as soon as the pandemic arrived, they came up with early treatment for COVID-19, didn't they? And they pushed and pushed and pushed. At first I thought there was a virus, and so it was great that they were coming up with treatments. Then later when I realized there wasn't, so I thought, why are they pushing this stuff? I thought, they're pushing harmless placebos on the worried well, and they're providing a belief structure that there really is a pandemic. Otherwise, why would these clever people be going out of their way to sell you this stuff? And it's like, unfortunately, it's much worse than that. One of the center stage drugs that they want you to take, ivermectin, is one of the most violent fertility toxins I've ever come across. And I didn't know this because, like you probably didn't think to do the deep research, and I didn't. So someone contacted me a few weeks ago with a bloody great dossier of papers that go back from its discovery, and there's unquestionably around the doses you're being suggested to take in rats and rabbits, and in some limited studies in humans, it reduces the ability to conceive and to grow babies to term. And doesn't it fit? Doesn't it fit? Why did there's nothing that's major on the world stage that's accidental, I'm afraid.
Yes.
That's the problem. And so now you know there's nothing major on the world stage that's accidental. Who put ivermectin there? Well, the perpetrators did. And why did they put it there? It's like, if you don't get jabbed and avoid impacts on your fertility, a good chunk of you will take ivermectin instead. And it gets worse. And then I'll stop talking about this because I haven't written about it yet, but it's on my mind.
That's good.
There are lots of other supplements that the worried well take. And again, I had thought it was mainly a money-making business. All right, a money-making business. They'll sell you K2 or whatever it is. There's loads of things I'd never heard of. You look at them in the so-called health food store. My wife will often ask me, what will this do? I've said, I've never heard of it. I was originally a biochemist and toxicologist. I've never heard of it. I have to look it up. It's real. It does exist. But so I thought they were just flogging benign placebos to the worried well, just to steal money off them. Unfortunately, it's not so. Many of the supplements, including most of the really famous ones, hamper the elimination from your body of ivermectin. So if you're a person that thinks, well, I'm going to take care of my health and not have the jabs, I've got this ivermectin that'll protect me, and I've got all these other supplements, and those supplements stop your body eliminating ivermectin. It's a negative drug-drug interaction. It's like, this can't be coincidence, folks. It's not a coincidence. So don't take anything. You know, honestly, just don't take pharmaceutical products, said the guy that works in the pharmaceutical industry for 31 years. Obviously, find a trusted doctor, because you can't trust most doctors. I'm not saying throw your prescriptions away, but seriously, if any of you are on chronic medications, find an enlightened doctor and evaluate whether that, on balance, is the right thing for you. Because my hunch is it's not. Really.
I'm going to chuck out my stash of ivermectin. I mean, I think loads of people have got
we
ivermectin.
We threw it out just in recent days, and we threw out all of the supplements that, I mean, in our particular case, we're not trying to have children, but there were several of these health supplements that the papers specifically showed were what's called P-glycoprotein. P-glycoprotein inhibitors, and ivermectin is secreted using P-glycoprotein pathways. And it was like, oh my God. And we have ivermectin in the bathroom cabinet and all the PGP inhibitor supplements in the kitchen cupboard. We threw them all in the bin.
Wow.
I know.
Do you think there are any pharmaceutical products that are okay? I mean, for example, where are you on aspirin and paracetamol?
I wouldn't take those either. But then I knew they were dangerous. We were all told, were we not? Have you not heard this phrase? That if they were launching aspirin today or paracetamol today, never get approved. We've all heard that, I think. And at one point, maybe still now, you can't buy more than a certain number, like 2 boxes or something. So there's a recognition that they are quite dangerous.
So what do you
I don't think they're useful either. So,
well, do you not get headaches?
That's the one thing. So I don't, luckily, but my wife does, and she said the only thing that removes it is aspirin.
You see, this is the bugger.
So that's fine. You don't go all religious about it, but I would think the default position should be not to reach for medicines when you feel unwell. I take a regular painkiller because I managed to get myself into a stupid situation where I have chronic, quite severe pain. And I would say that the medicines that are closest to nature are probably the safest. So the pharmaceutical industry was sort of taken over at the turn of the 19th, 20th century by the Rockefeller school of how can we use sort of the oil industry's products to make things. That was one of many ways to use petrochemicals. But prior to that, most things were based on herbal remedies, and there were lots of anti-inflammatories from plants and pain relievers from plants and so on, things that can dry your secretions from plants. And people have known about these things for hundreds of thousands of years, probably. Yeah. So used with care, under the direction of someone who's been around the block, that is the medicine woman or the witch doctor or whatever, I think, those are probably okay. They're probably more likely to work and have been designed by, I call it God or nature. I don't mind how that happened, but they're real natural things. And I know creationists would say God put them there for our use.
Well, my theory on this, that it goes back to the Tower of Babel, that the fallen angels wanted to make war on God, and so they created a sort of simulacrum of a sort of bastard version of heaven on earth. They wanted to, so God provided all these things, these natural things which work, and all they can do is invert it and subvert it, so that you get sort of chemical simulations made from petroleum products or whatever, and they're not like the real thing.
So basically, what I've just said might marry up somewhat with your.
It's totally true.
Yeah,
you're absolutely right.
And I think there are a small number of products that belong to that category, and you'd have to go and look at each one to see whether they've been inverted or not. But the general rule of thumb: take as few prescription medicines as you possibly can. You can't get a solution to a disorder or an illness, something that's ailing you, from taking chronically a medicine. We're too complicated for that, and we're not clever enough to fix this.
I'm gobsmacked by the ivermectin thing. I mean, that's a real shock. But I think what it shows is Albert Pike's famously said, when they want a hero, we will supply them.
Yeah.
So during the whole pandemic, the fake pandemic, there were various freedom fighters that you've hinted at, particularly American doctors who emerged apparently as heroes for our side, that they too were questioning the system and they were fighting back. The ones that get prominence are always working for the enemy, aren't they?
See, that's the point. Is without naming individuals, there are certain people who I would have regarded professionally as my peers, pretty much.
What
well, yeah, and but some in England as well, and they've grown large organisations, the purpose of which is now absolutely clear to me. And that person asked me to join as chief scientist, and my instincts were no. See, I just said I didn't join things. Also, I didn't like the idea of being involved in money making out of this crisis, because lots of people are doing that, and it just immediately. It's going to alter your motivations. If you could do something and make $1 million, or do something else and not, I'm afraid human beings will lie. They just do. So don't put yourself in a position where there's a benefit from you doing one thing and not another. Then that allows me to sort of move with my own thoughts and have things land on me. So I was booted off almost every internet platform quite quickly, certainly during 2020. LinkedIn just didn't even bother to ban me or temporarily ban me. There's literally, I tried to log in one day and it was gone. So
are you telling me you're not controlled opposition?
No, apparently not.
But you would say that, of course.
Yes, of course. I can't appear as myself on the internet anywhere except on Telegram. How many people have used Telegram as a messaging app?
I never use it,
maybe
ever.
20%. So here's the point. I mean, you are a concentrated sample of the population who's already wide awake, and only a fifth of you have even used Telegram. So that means 80% of the awake people don't, and I bet you it's 98% of the people out there. So I've got 23,000 followers. Well, I had 100,000 on Twitter quite early on. And yet my peers who are saying similar things like, don't take the vaccines, there is a plot, but they're pushing and flogging ivermectin, for example, have 10 times the number of subscribers. How did that happen? Since my numbers, I think, I know they're being restricted by either AI or humans. In fact, maybe both. Do any of you remember a news story early in 2020 to the effect the British government had hired 20,000 people to work with the 77th Brigade? Is anyone? Yeah, there's a bit.
There's some of them here tonight.
Yeah, there's some of their work. And I know exactly. It's sometimes. I was very interested in old motorcycles, and so I have an identity that's relevant to that for YouTube. So I'll sometimes comment below YouTube videos, and if they get anywhere close to my area of expertise, I can write it, press enter, and it appears, refresh the screen, gone. Repeatedly in front of me. So that's either an automated system or it's a human. Sometimes I get annoyed and I write saying, if you are a 77th Brigade person who just deleted that comment, can you look your children in the eyes when you go home? Can you hold your own gaze in the mirror? Are you really stupid enough that you think whoever's paying you is going to let you keep your ill-gotten gains while you destroy the society that you're living in?
They don't have children because they can't get girlfriends.
But you know what? On 2 or 3 occasions, censorship had diminished on that platform for a day or so afterwards. So it's like either a prayer worked and the AI, ChatGTP, felt chastised, or a human thought, blimey, he's right. Either way. So I can't even write anonymous comments online I'm not on the, everything is, if I write something on Twitter under H. Simiez, there's no point in knowing that. So who the hell cares who H. Simiez, what H. Simiez thinks? I can put controversial but provable statements in a very popular thread where other people are reading and replying to other people's comments, and I can come back a week later and it's like no reads, no replies. So basically, I think, and I've asked sometimes people, and they've said, "You sent me the screenshot, Mike. I've been to that thread. Your tweet is not visible." So this is the intensity, and that's why and this is not me crying on your shoulder, but I'm pointing out if you rely on people like James or myself to kind of save you, you won't be saved, because the authorities allow people like me to speak because they know that their message can't go very far. That's the problem. But you can boost it. Imagine if all of you decided to find a short of me saying something controversial, and you all sent it out. You all get zapped from heaven. But it would be too difficult. They wouldn't be able to censor all of them. They'd probably come and murder me instead. But
do you reckon that does kind of answer your question at the beginning about, because I was worried about you early on, because Big Pharma really does have a reputation of bumping off.
Yeah, they've definitely bumped off people.
Do you know anyone who's been bumped off personally?
No, but was that a joke?
I mean, as in from the industry.
Yeah. Dr. Rashid Buttar, I think, was probably killed, and I spoke to him several times. I'm afraid I can't remember. Mikael Nordstrom, that's another guy. It's a Scandinavian guy. Yeah, I spoke to him several times, and he's dead suddenly and unexpectedly. I think there's 3. I can't think who.
Three's.
Yeah, it's quite a few.
Enough.
It's like,
and I think there were 3 African leaders as well. It wasn't just Magufuli. There were 2 other heads of state.
But also when people say, "Oh, you're awfully brave," or whatever, it's like, "Aren't you worried about blah blah blah?" It's like, if they're going to do it, they're going to do it. And also, if they are thinking of doing it, if I go, "Oh, I'll be quiet now, please don't murder me," it's like, that's not going to work, is it?
No.
Also, I've got 300 interviews out there circulating around the web. So I think if I vanish, I don't want them to do it. This is not the method, not the approved method of getting my message out there. But if I suddenly died, especially if it was unexpectedly, I think a lot more people would go hunting for what was he saying. I think it would boost the message. So I'm not going to say I'm safe. It's just I observe they haven't done anything bad, and I don't think they've a reason to. I think at this point, the bed is made.
Yes.
Both parties are lying in it.
They've killed you with technology rather than literally.
Smearing and censorship.
Wasn't there a lot of time when you used to appear on, when Julia Hartley-Brewer had you on her show?
Yeah. I was on about 3 or 4 times. It was okay when I was talking about the PCR test. I now think, in retrospect, the PCR test was like a lost leader. It was acceptable to have a go at it. Probably because it's so complicated that in the end it would be a matter of, it's an act of faith on behalf of non-technical people in the audience. They'll either accept someone's explanation or they can accept someone else's. So I think I was allowed to dispute.
So you were saying presumably that when it's run at so many cycles, it just doesn't reveal anything worthwhile.
Because I don't think there is not a pathogen. So if there's not a pathogen, even if you had a perfect technology, it would not be capable of detecting the thing.
But at the time, you believed in pathogens.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, no, I thought it was an absurd over-amplification. So when 40 cycles, as they call it, it would increase the amount of stuff in your original sample pot from 1 to 1 trillion, whatever it was that was in there. Notionally, we got by 1 trillion-fold. It wouldn't take much cross-reactivity, something reacting unspecifically off target. It wouldn't take much. By the time you've multiplied it by hundreds of billions,
do you
get a signal. So I thought, no one's done the validation, and they haven't done the validation. So forget it. That whether it could be useful or not, they're not useful. These are being used to generate cases.
Was there any bad stuff on that pokey thing?
I don't know.
And were they collecting
DNA? I don't know. I heard about the DNA thing. I thought, if you wanted DNA, most people would encounter healthcare or the dentist. every couple of years or so, some much more often. So I thought if they wanted to collect DNA, it'd be much easier to do it through unsuspicious methods they already have. So why would they bother to collect DNA? And also just people taking swabs wearing high-vis vests in a windy car park, and it's like it's not going to be good enough, is it, to sequence me? I don't think. I think that was all. It was all an act. I know someone who worked in one of the so-called lighthouse labs, these high-throughput PCR labs that were set up using private money in the late spring of 2020, and the person who worked there, who'd used PCR as an analytical, as a sort of trying to work out pathways thing rather than a diagnostic tool. I asked him what he thought the fraction of positive results were fake, false. And he said, any number you like, 3, 30, 93. It's like, they've no idea. That was his professional opinion after spending 30 years in the lab. He said, and he worked in one of the lighthouse labs in southern England for 3 weeks or something. But honestly, forget about it. Don't need to argue about it. You can argue about PCR, but as applied, it's just performative art, isn't it? They're not diagnostic of anything.
You're freaking me out with that bit of paper on your lap.
I had a few things.
What is it?
I had a couple of things there. One of them is, this is rather sweet. Somebody wrote to me thanking me for my work, and they said, and in such high esteem are you held in our household, that they showed a picture that our new puppy is called Yeadon. So I can just imagine they're chasing it around the local park. Yeadon, 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 get back here. And it's like, oh, Yeadon. And so I said, that's so sweet, and I'm sorry about the carpets, Because somewhere running around somewhere, there's a puppy called Yeadon, so if you hear that...
What type of puppy is it?
It's a very sweet little brown dog. I can't tell you what strain it was. It's a bit pathetic. I think it was a foxhound, wasn't it? Little
foxhound?
Just a little beagle foxhound cross, those, yeah.
We like foxhounds.
Oh, of course we do.
Yeah, we do. We like
I just fell into that one. So
they're about to get slaughtered by that bastard Starmer.
That was certainly one thing. The other things that mentioned that I thought of, well, you might want to talk about it if people don't know about it. The ending of the petrodollar is quite a fun one.
The what?
Ending of the petrodollar.
Yeah. So that was... Yeah. You're right. They did some story. There was some distraction that they did to distract. Was it Taylor Swift or something else that they used to distract us from the end of the petrodollar?
Yeah, there was something.
There was something, wasn't there?
Some weird event.
Nobody here follows the news, so we can't remember what the distracting thing was. So it's no good.
But yeah, so that again, it's. I remember I read a quote from a politician that said, however something happened, you can be sure that it was meant to be so. There was one American president, I think, said that. So it's like, okay, so that means the ending of the petrodollar, where Saudi Arabia is no longer bound by a 1974 agreement brokered by Henry Kissinger to sell their oil exclusively in US dollars. That arrangement was in place in total for 80 years, I think, or 70 years. And the effect of that is that there is a world market pretty much only crude oil priced in dollars. And that means lots of countries buying oil, you need to have a supply of foreign exchange. They need to have some dollars, which makes them buyers of the US government debt. It makes it the currency of last resort. It provides the Americans famously with exorbitant privilege. I think that was the phrase. Yeah. So it has now ended. And so some people think, oh my God, won't the dollar fall into the sea? But these people know what they're doing. So whatever the effect is, you can be sure that it was intended to be so. So I don't know what will happen. But you would expect it to weaken, would you not?
This is the thing that the normies believe. They think that nobody could possibly be so clever or rich or organized as to construct a conspiracy on this scale. But once you've been down a few rabbit holes, you realize they're really good at this shit. I mean, they've been doing it for centuries.
That's the thing, I think. This is another thing that'll have people reeling away in horror if they don't already know it. You and I might have, it would be surprising if you ask people about their career planning at the end of their career. It's like mostly we just kind of stumbled into it. I did. Some people had a plan and then they did it, but most of us don't. So can you imagine spending your whole life doing something that's going to be a component of something larger that isn't going to come true for like 150 years? I can't, but I've got lots of evidence that there are plenty of people who did just that. So, yeah, there are people who spent their entire life working towards this, and their father did before them, and their grandfather before them. And there is an overlap. They're always extremely wealthy. So it's like, I don't know, maybe it'll be all right, young lads. You've been born into a billionaire family. We are a bunch of satanic eugenicists, and that's what you're going to be doing all your life. Yes, whatever. Let me take you around the back for some training. I don't know how they do it, but they have. There's a group of people.
I don't think they have much fun doing this stuff.
God, it must be awful.
I think they're really messed up and really unhappy.
Yeah.
Because when you learn about the rituals they have to undergo to turn them into successful psychopaths, they train them to be evil.
Yeah. So
and they're so horribly abused. You can't have a normal sex life.
No,
for starters.
I wouldn't think so. I mean, again, the satanic child abuse, murder kind of stuff, adrenochrome, I thought quite early on that you don't need to be a scientist to do this one. So I'm going to stay well clear of this one. And the people who are better qualified in whatever that means, they can do it. And I'll just benefit from learning. Oh, God. So you can't cover everything anyway. So I remember thinking early on, I'll go after the pathogen thing, the testing, and the treatments.
What you were considering as an option, the child abuse and the...
No, I meant researching it and exposing it. Some people have said, why aren't you speaking out about Gaza?
Oh,
And it's like, I said, why would you think a retired pharmaceutical company executive knows anything at all about it? I don't know anything about it. And also, I'll tell you this, I'm for innocent people being made to suffer wherever they are. Right? So if you think I'm going to take one side against another, forget about it. But anyway, there are lots of things I'm not reluctant to talk about them, but the answer is I don't know anything about it.
Can I give you some career, I'm really bad at career advice, Mike, but I would say stick to your knitting.
Exactly.
No one's going to be thinking, I never used to believe in adrenochrome and the Rothschilds.
Until Yeadon spoke about it.
But then Mike Yeadon, the guy he used to work for Pfizer, talked about it.
Honestly, on the other hand, if I came across unequivocal evidence that was kind of objective, I'm afraid I would reveal it. All right? But I don't think that's likely. I don't think it's likely.
But you do have interests beyond pharmaceutical products and vaccines and that. You were mentioning to me about, you obviously know about music.
Yeah.
And you know how the music industry is controlled and how it's... When did you go down that rabbit hole? Because you can't have known that in the beginning.
Probably late 21. Yeah, I think it was late 21, the first one I came across. There's a guy called Mike Williams in the States, and I stumbled across some of his videos, and you can look this one up. It's easy to remember the title. The title is, Did the Beatles Write All Their Own Music? Did the Beatles Write All Their Own Music by Mike Williams. Anyway, if you can bear to watch the 4 hours, 20 minutes or whatever, it's extraordinarily thorough, and you will come to some unpleasant conclusions about the Beatles. Armed with that one, I looked around and I came across a guy called Mark Devlin, who is a fairly well-known English DJ Mark Devlin, and he's written several books called Musical Truths, a number of volumes. And unfortunately, music, as all culture has, all activities that we fall under the umbrella of culture have been used by powerful people who are clever with psychology and other things to socially engineer largely the West. And they've been doing it for at least 60 years and possibly a lot longer. But that, as far as the breadcrumb trail goes for me, I have sight of evidence that goes back 60 years.
I refuse to accept that the Beatles were not four lovable mop tops from Liverpool. Yeah. And I think that the city of Liverpool will be very upset to hear you claim otherwise.
I think Pete Best dodged a bullet, and he probably knows it.
Have you gone down the Taylor Swift rabbit hole yet?
Not really, other than I thought it was fairly obvious. I think she's not the only one. Who was the other one I was looking at? If It Makes You Happy, what's her name? If It Makes You Happy. What, that one?
What, Cher?
Sheryl Crow. Is it Sheryl Crow?
Oh,
No,
Sheryl Crow?
Not that one.
No, I don't know.
Anyway, I could swear that I think that's a man as well.
But
don't worry, my inability to recognise male and female does not affect my ability to correctly judge that these injections were designed to injure, kill, and reduce fertility. But just for fun. Oh yeah, when we were in America, Joanna and I, we were invited to dinner with a couple, a very wealthy couple who was sponsors of America's Frontline Doctors, and up in conversation it came, I think we just realised that Michelle Obama, Big Mike. Anyway, so we were just explaining it, and the older guy is a billionaire, and he said, I said, how long has it been, since you realised that this person wasn't female? And he asked me, he said, did anyone ever think she was?
This is the thing, isn't it?
He said it was well known that Michelle was known as Big Mike before election for both of their terms and subsequently. And I thought, well, I never knew. I didn't. It's very common.
So, do you think
Mrs. Macron apparently is a man as well.
These billionaires that you must occasionally meet these people. Have you met any goodies? Or are they all part of the big club?
I haven't met many billionaires. And in the rule of thumb is that they're just like other people, rich people. Probably, if anything, the trends are being nastier. I've met some, people who are worth more than 100 million personally, several of them, because of biotech finance.
Yeah.
And the one thing you can be absolutely sure of is that they would kill you if they could make a little bit more money out of it. They're that nice and kindly.
Yeah.
I have at least 3 or 4 people I've met that I think if they're not CIA assets, if they got the call, they'd go, fine, whatever it was they were being asked to do. So what's that drug company? The drug company that made Remdesivir, Gilead. It's like Gilead. What kind of company? Who calls a company Gilead? Isn't that some nasty place in that?
In that book?
In that book.
By that woman?
Yeah. Anyway,
with the woman wear the hat.
So they called it that, and I think it's because they are probably the people who designed these bloody vaccines. It's like, because what you may not know is that most of the senior management were once head of research or head of R&D at one or other of the large pharmaceutical companies. Where else are you going to find crooks who are very clever and willing to work with other crooks? It's like you get the retired R&D heads. They're not all crooks, I think, but all the ones that went to work for Gilead must be crooks because some of their products are just obviously toxic.
Yeah.
And you're not going to be stopped by anybody. Because who's going to stop you? What's the regulator? The FDA, revolving door. Most of the people who work there who were division heads at one point were senior in pharma or will be, or join the board. So basically, over a gentleman's club conversation in Boston, Mass, somebody could say, well, we're going to bring forward this because it's plausible that it could be used as an antiviral, but actually it lodges in the ovaries and destroys fertility. So this is how we're going to get it to the market, and your job is to say yes when it comes through. So it's so easy. Once you realize that there's nothing they won't do, and that every institution is taken and corrupted, no exceptions. So you can see how
every industry we're talking about.
I joked about the WI, Women's Institute, and the RSPCA or whatever, the Royal Society for Protection of Cruelty to Animals. And then I would say darkly, and I'm not so sure about the RSPCA.
No way.
I don't think any institution whose ostensible task is to protect your freedoms and so on and the truth, I don't think any of them are on their feet still doing their job, if they ever were.
I'll tell you that, about the Royal Society for the, what are they called, protection of birds?
RSPB.
Yeah.
Oh,
that one was founded at the end of the 19th century for a really good reason. It's
a very dangerous period of time.
Upper class women were importing the fashion was for bird feathers.
Oh, yes.
And they were devastating the bird populations of Central America and stuff. You know, hummingbirds were being wiped out because it was insatiable, the appetite for kind of dresses and headdresses and stuff. So they were good at the beginning.
Okay.
But by the time I was starting to write about environmental issues, they were supporting wind turbines. They were really behind wind turbines. Now, what do wind turbines do to birds?
Chop up birds.
They slice and dice them, particularly the birds that they most want to protect, the
Big
cherished
soaring
raptors,
birds of prey
the
and
golden
things like that.
eagles
Yeah,
and
yeah,
stuff.
absolutely.
So you're right, the world is so corrupt. I'll change the subject slightly, but...
And unfortunately, all the great professions are in the same problem. They have the same problem. And apologies that it took me about 4 years to realise this, because being a PhD is not a regulated profession, even though I think in many ways it's a more advanced kind of training. So to be a doctor, okay, the consequences if you get it wrong are very serious. But it's rote learning. It's mostly rote learning. You need to be good at remembering things. You don't necessarily need to be clever. I think you have to be quite clever to get a PhD, because you have to synthesize, you have to come up with a new research question that might be importantly have answered and is doable, and then you have to bloody well go and do it. And you have to learn new techniques and then get your work published. It's quite difficult. And so, oddly enough, being a PhD is not it's not regulated. There's not an office of PhDs or something. But if you are a lawyer or a doctor or policeman or whatever, almost all of the dentists, basically you can be prevented from practicing by your regulatory body, your association, and it keeps these people in line, doesn't it? Whereas as a semi-retired PhD, I can say what I like. I'm not a member of the British Pharmacological Society or the Royal Society of whatever it is. So, but I think it's very hard, for people in professions, because there'll be, calls made quite quickly.
Yeah, well, how do you get out? I mean, once you're at the level where you get elevated to senior partner, you've got a wife kind of dependent on that new kitchen, haven't you, and stuff like that. And you've got the school fees.
And it's not just money. I mean, I assumed it was money, and I remember saying passionately that, I can't understand. I think any person, like a doctor who's 55 and up, maybe even younger, unless you've been completely irresponsible with your money, you could afford to speak out. And if you get fired, so be it. You're not going to miss any meals. You'll still probably have a holiday in Italy and so on. But that's not it, James. It's being rejected from their social group, the bridge club, the golf club, the Masonic handshaking group, probably. So, I think that explains why, why so few speak out. I don't understand why so few just didn't walk away, because then it is just maybe even then it's like abandoning your post.
I tell you what I don't get is what these people think is going to happen if they carry on doing what they do. I mean, for example, my disgusting former trade, journalism. I look at Tobes and I look at Douglas and I look at these people, and I think, what do you think the world is going to end up as if you carry on doing what you're doing and not speaking out what's coming our way? Yeah. Do you think there's going to be a kind of special island that you can go to where you run the local newspaper and you get paid a fat salary? Or what kind of world do you think is going to happen as a result of your silence? I do not get that.
What I don't know is what fraction of such people have allowed themselves to understand that there is a rabbit hole. Right. So it may be that some of them they've veered away and then allowed 2 years to pass. So they've more or less forgotten that it's happening, which is depressing. So I think you said early on, didn't you, that some of us lead double lives. I do when I wander around in the street, and unfortunately, I don't want to be famous, and I'm very uncomfortable with being recognised, but it's important data. And when my wife and I have travelled internationally, so at some point we'll be either in St Pancras railway station or Gatwick or Heathrow, on each of those journeys, usually I'm recognised once. So it tells me if I'm exposed to enough thousands of people for enough hours, I'm usually recognised once, going from England to France or back and so on. that number has not increased at all over 3 years. So it started happening in 2021, and it's not increased at all in 3 years, which is, I'm a person of data, if nothing else. That's I would love it to be like it was this evening. I was walking up with my wife to go and buy a sandwich, and I think we passed about
That would be good, wouldn't it?
20 people. Eventually, I was just doing this, hiding my head. That would be great, but unfortunately it isn't. I reckon it's no more than 1 in 1,000 people.
Imagine if we could go and live in
town.
We could form a new country. Where would be good? Actually, this would be quite good, wouldn't it? If we just clear out the normies, and we just have our own little
community,
like special place where we all just.
That'd be great. I'd be up for that, because I honestly think it won't. It's not impossible to resist what's coming.
Without guns.
No, that's guns.
It's a kind of, it's not a small issue. That
the guns are not going to save the Americans. No, the guns are not going to save the Americans. If you are the perpetrator, you know that there are 300 million guns and several trillion rounds. So you're going to come up with a plan, James, that doesn't involve running at those guns.
I would rather have that situation.
I would rather have it
than have imported people who've come across the channel to be policemen for the New World Order. Yeah. They'll have all the weaponry, we won't.
I agree.
That's the worst.
I agree. So but I mean, there are several levels to it. I think I would have held this view that cash is anonymity and cash is freedom from interference from an over mighty state. If I have earned money and paid tax on it, I should be able to withdraw that from my bank account and give it to whomsoever I like. All right? They go, and then when slow-witted people say, well, at least the digital currency will reduce crime, it's like, no. Do you really believe that? Do you believe the mighty and the political and the influential do it through a written check? It's like, no, they don't. It won't make any difference to serious crime, will it? They'll just find other ways of doing it. No, it'll make your lives impossible to live, to lead if you can't use cash. So I always go to the checkout where they accept cash. If the shop doesn't accept cash, I almost always leave. I think I've used cash 3 times, not cash, 3 times in 18 months, apart from online. I can't buy things from India using cash. So I go to the cashier and I say, you accept cash? Oh yes, and usually that leads to a positive conversation. And I chat with them. They'll often say, oh, could you give me an email for the receipt? And I'll say, no thanks, I'm anonymous, but I'm very friendly, as you can see. So sometimes I can tell they'd be probably required to get your details. And I'll say, I'm choosing to shop anonymously, but entirely legally. So, treat yourself then. It's like, do you know then if anything's wrong with his goods? I'll say, I'll have the receipt, won't I? I'll be able to bring it back with the receipt. So basically, use cash as much as you can. Just imagine if more people did it. What else would I say? Oh, yeah, I think precious metals. I don't know anything about your sponsors, but every time James talks about having access to some amount of gold and silver is a sound idea. The idea that people say, oh, well, it'll be no good, the government will seize it. It's like, good luck finding it. Don't buy it and leave it in a bank. Don't buy it as a paper product and leave it online, because that's not gold. That's not gold. I remember Catherine Austin Fitz, the famous finance lady, who was once a junior member of Ronald Reagan's government, Catherine Austin Fitz. She says you only own that which you can put your foot on the pile and defend it with the point of a gun. So it's just
there's the gun again, though. You see, I mean, and there's a reason why people with metal detectors are finding hoards. It's because people have buried them and they've got killed.
Even if that happens to mine, it will be funnier than letting the perpetrator to steal the digits out of my NatWest account. Have some money, and then gold and silver, and stockpile some food. If you're a grower, great, but if you're not, stockpile some food. It's been used it's been used forever, hasn't it, to control the people? And
it's going to be used again very soon, I think.
I think it's going to be used very soon.
Well, yeah. So actually, I know where you are, but I'm going to ask you publicly. You share my view that they are very much angling for a world war right now.
Yeah.
How's that going to pan out, do you reckon? I mean, how are they, is it going to be over, is it going to be the Gaza, Israel, Iran thing, or is it going to be the Ukraine thing, do you reckon?
The funny thing is, I think they want to have a situation where you believe there's a world war. And so a lot of people, including me until recently, thought, well, what about the threat of nuclear annihilation? It's like, by induction, you can, and one other fact, you can conclude that there aren't any, right? So there aren't any.
Yeah.
If there were, the perpetrators would not create a situation where one wrong move could reduce the whole world of the West, as it were, to molten glass. They've got too much to lose. None of them are brave, right? So there's no way they would allow this situation to develop, which we've learned throughout our lives has been one where the great powers, America and USSR, will never face off directly because people would think it would go quickly to a nuclear exchange, wouldn't it? That's what we've been led to believe. So how can it possibly be that we've got the Western leaders saying, you know, we're going to go into Ukraine and Russia must not be allowed to win whatever's going on there. And Russia saying, you're not coming over that threshold because then you'll literally be knocking on my border. So if you come over that line, we will have to kill you. So if that was all the information, you might think, well, maybe they are just playing a reckless game. But there is another piece of information, and that's that, again, stand by to be shocked. Hiroshima and Nagasaki were not destroyed by nuclear bombs.
No.
We know this. We know this for a fact, just based on the radionuclides, that is, the isotopes and various elements, the isotopes and elements that would be present if there had been a nuclear fission bomb. And it's even worse, some of them that were missing in 1945 were found in lake sediments many years later, dated to 1946. So they were put in the lake after. And that's because they didn't have plutonium purified from the Manhattan Project at the time. So I'm sorry. And you're not surprised now. I mean, you realize, if you didn't already, that evil people are willing to use whatever lie they can to provide a fear-based lever over you. So that one I am sure of, because I've gone to read the original research papers. And you probably, did you interview somebody?
Well, German Warfare had that bloke on his
Warfare,
pod.
that's right.
And that...
Oh, no, he wasn't particularly, I mean, he's a lovely guy, but he wouldn't be Bart Sibrel. Bart Sibrel?
I've done Bart Sibrel about
yeah.
But he's got a website, apparently.
Yeah, no, exactly. No, it's not a friend, but it's somebody I know. It's a German doctor called Dr. Michael Palmer. And other people also have trodden the same sort of ground. And it's like the wrong isotopes in the wrong place.
But do you not... I find it unreassuring that nukes don't exist, because at least it's quite kind of quick. Whereas, what they're asking us to do is to send our sons to the meat grinder of the trench warfare.
But it makes no sense, does it?
But that's what. It does to them because it's a blood sacrifice.
Anyway, if I was young, I would just refuse to go. I have no male children. We have 2 grown-up daughters, but not.
So you're thinking that they won't get their war?
I think they'd like to kill lots of people. So unfortunately, it's entirely possible that they'll be sent off and blown up using conventional.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm worried about.
So I think that's entirely possible. So that's why I said you'll think there's a war, but there isn't. For example, there won't be imminent danger of being invaded. It's like if they wanted to turn up, they would already, and they have already. They're already here. It's just the enemy is your government. All right? Yeah. And all the people I'm afraid the senior people in public service in every single branch have decided to go along with that. From the meteorological office to the NHS. Cowards, all of them. Honestly, if you think, I'll say it again, if you're worried about what will happen if you speak out, now start thinking about what will happen if you don't. You ain't got long.
No, we ain't got long, which brings me to the afterlife. So the other person, it's weird how every trade seems to have yielded about one person that is prepared to speak out. So football, kicky ball, you've got Matt Le Tissier.
Oh yeah,
He's the only kicky ball.
It is a bit worrying, isn't it? I know where you're going with this one.
and Big Pharma. Actually, no, there's you and there's Sasha Latipova.
Yeah, but she wasn't senior in the industry. She formed businesses that provided services to them.
But still, yeah,
and wealthy women, and
still
a clever
a small number of you.
Yeah, it is.
Exactly. And then you've got we've got the pop industry. We've got sort of Ian Brown hovers on the edge, and we've got the Freds, and we've got
maybe a bit of Richard Ashcroft, maybe.
Danny Rampling. Yeah, sorry. Yes, I was thinking of players, but yeah, exactly. Danny Rampling, of course.
Why is it that
Danny Rampling's from the DJ world? Yeah, exactly.
Why is it like? Are you saying it's like one from each profession?
I was mentioning Matt Le Tissier because apparently he has discovered God.
Amazing! Well done, Matt.
Of late,
good.
And I was wondering, has that happened to you?
Yeah.
How did it happen?
I think I have described it. I have described it in a brief interview with that was published on the Truth for Health Foundation. Dr. Vliet is the founder and was the interviewer. But basically, I think in retrospect, because it is in retrospect, sort of I explained it by thinking, this is so evil, there must be a counterbalancing good force. But I think that's like a weak argument. I don't think I would have used it going forward, but that's how I explain it now. But how it actually happened was I was woken several times in the small hours, like 2 or 3 a.m. When I opened my eyes in a dark room, I could see evil. I could see it. And of course, I got out of bed, got dressed, left the room. Joanna said she didn't notice it. So it's not like there was something physical so I haven't left her with this dangerous thing. But basically, I was woken by evil. And this happened 3 times in a row. And on the third night, all the bits that I could lay out, in retrospect, I would describe it as if I let them go and they all coalesced into one point. So I could see, oh my God, these evil people are going to take over completely and murder us. I fell to the floor. And in that moment, I felt warmth, love, and strength. And it was more or less, here's a gift of endurance, go off and tell people. That's my experience of God. And now, I say without embarrassment, I feel I am completely safe in his hands. That's where I am.
Wow. That's good.
So, fear has left me completely. It's amazing. What would you do? I remember somebody as a career coach years ago said, what would you do if you weren't afraid? And it's such a good question, because most of us live a large amount of our life in fear, don't they? I mean, if you think back, you're hindered from doing something because what happens if I fail, or will people laugh at me, or will I give up something will this be an irreversible move if I try and do something? So that the personal growth counselling was often actually to think about the answer to that question, what would you do if you weren't afraid? And I'm in that blessed position. I'm just literally not afraid. I've had a great life already. It could go on for another day or decades. And, I'm okay with who I am. So,
yeah.
I don't know why people worry. It's like, what are you really worried about? Don't worry about what your neighbours say. It's like, our neighbours already think we're conspiracy theorists. Such a thing.
So, do you go to church, or do you read the Bible? Or
yeah, I have started. I'm prompted by you mostly, James. I read Psalms occasionally, and some
good.
bits of the Bible. Oh yes, Psalms. I saw a really good one. Yeah, if you go on holiday, there'll be like, in case of emergency, like plumber, electrician, taxi and so on. This one was emergency numbers, and it was, if you feel weary, if you feel lost, then it would be Psalm 29, whatever it was. Each one of them had a reference. And I thought, which one of those am I closest to right now, and whatever it was. And I went to it, and it was absolutely right, these emergency numbers. So it's great. If you need reassurance, if someone has done you wrong, it's like, you get the idea, don't you?
Totally.
Because you become because you've been such a fan of them, I thought, there must be something in it. And so there you go, Mr. Delingpole's influence.
I do recommend them. They are kind of the key to everything, I think. Because they're like poetry, so you can learn them, but they're also like a condensed version of all the important bits, not just of the Old Testament when they were written, but also the New Testament, because Jesus is constantly quoting them, which is really cool, because what it means is that he's endorsing the Psalms, and he's kind of answering those people who say, the Old Testament is weird. The God of the Old Testament is kind of, he's probably Satan in disguise, or it's a weird stuff that we need not.
Exactly. It's all possible. But no, it's the one. I think you quoted it on one of your telling pods. So I think it was the one. If you feel frightened or whatever, it was something like, "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Who then shall I fear?" Something like that.
Yes.
The
Lord is the strength of my life, of whom shall I be afraid?
There you go. So,
when the wicked, even mine enemies and my foes, came upon me to eat up my flesh, they stumbled and fell.
Great. It was just fantastic.
But, I mean...
where did that come from?
That's a psalm that deals with zombie attack, doesn't it? When they came upon me to eat up my flesh. I mean, what else could it be? That was in that weird... They used that in that weird... You probably don't watch TV, do you?
No.
No, I have to, because I have to do the TV critic. No,
how
I think we won't talk about TV. I was going to mention to you about this weird situation we all find ourselves in. Have you read a book by, or seen a film version of, Kazuo Ishiguro's Never Let Me Go?
I haven't.
Well, okay.
Joanna?
So
my wife's a very good reader, and I'm not.
I'm sorry. I'm going to spoil the plot for those of you who haven't read it, who are going to read it. I'm sorry about that. But before we came here, I went with my sister Hel to try and find somewhere to eat, and we ended up grabbing a burger because we couldn't find anything really. And in the other side of the road was this shop, a restaurant now opening, called Yumbug.
Oh.
And it was a restaurant selling insect products. So and it said, the dystopian future that we've been warning people about is here. And I said to Hal, can people not see what's coming? And Helen said, even when it arrives, they won't know it's happening. Well, that's the problem.
Cricket flour is in lots of products in the supermarket already. If you look on the list of ingredients, we never buy long life shelf baked goods because they're full of rapeseed oil, they're full of machine oil, and they're now going to be full of 10% of the protein will be locust bodies. It's like, but you can avoid all of these things by only eating fresh food. And starting point should be things you can recognize as a bit of something. So, piece of meat.
Although, the fresh food thing, I know all the stuff we should be doing. I know we should be hiding gold in ourselves.
I know they could be poisoning the animals.
Everything, all the stuff we should be doing, building communities, blah, 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 blah. But it's much more fun talking about Taylor Swift being a man, number one. But number two, I happen to live on a large estate. I rent a house on an estate. And I have been loaned one of the pineapple houses, like much better than having your own greenhouse, in which I can grow tomatoes. Yes. So I've been, every sodding day, I have been visiting those sodding tomatoes and treating them like puppies or something. Giving them their feed.
Like Prince Charles used to.
What's going to happen at the end of this effort? I'm going to get a period where I get loads and loads of bloody tomatoes, which more than I can eat, more than I can give away. And that will last about 2 months.
Yeah.
And then the tomatoes will have gone.
Well, can't you? I mean, not that I don't know how to do any of this stuff, but can't you bottle them or tin them
You
or
probably
something?
can, but how much space have you got for bottled
And
tomatoes?
then you could trade them for somebody's raspberry
Trade
jam.
them to do what?
Trade them. You could swap them. You could trade
Yeah,
them.
I could trade
You
them
could-
for
you could-
somebody
you
for
could
a
swap
turnip.
swap them for some petrol.
This is the problem.
to make a Molotov cocktail, of course. You won't be driving a car.
This is why I'm happy that you've found the God option, because I think ultimately, you think about this, the predator class over generations have trained out of us all the skills that might enable us to survive. So, I'm a really good blogger. Well, that's going to be useful, isn't it? It's going to save my arse, and your pharmaceutical industry experience is really going to help you when they come at you with their.
I'm quite lucky. Not that this will save me, but I like working with my hands. So I own a lot of engineering tools and things. So I like making things. But I'm not good enough. I couldn't make a steam engine or, whatever. But I can usually fix things that did work and have now broken. I can usually do that.
You're going to be all right.
Could be.
You're going to do the handyman job and things that people will need.
Absolutely.
Whereas I've got no skills at all. I'm absolutely toast, which is why I'm thinking, why bother getting,
Although there might
not
be
getting killed.
there might be a limited call for a hedge trimmer in a sort of post-nuclear apocalypse sort of. Not that will happen, of course.
Do you think it's time we went to the pub? Yeah,
Sounds
I
like
think
it.
so.
No, definitely.
I just want to, but you can say your final thing. But I suddenly remembered before I go, the other thing I didn't do in my excitement at the beginning, and I feel really bad about this. I wanted to take the piss out of Dominic Frisby. I love Dominic very much, and I want to say how happy I was that he was playing his funny songs and stuff. But did any of you see Dom posted some pictures of himself on Twitter today? He's been fasting 2 days a week, and he's gone all kind of muscle bound and amazing, and I felt really jealous. And I was gonna quote tweet the picture of him saying, "Transgender inversion is real, and look how hideous it is." And then I thought, but he's opening for me tonight, and he might think that was rude, so I didn't put it. So on the end, I just put below, "I would, ... And I was thinking, no, I wouldn't actually. I don't want to shout Dominic Frisby. Just trying to be polite. I ended up revealing myself as something I'm not. So anyone who read that, I don't want to shout Dominic Frisby, number one. The second thing I wanted to say is to give my thanks to Ben. Ben, who organised this. And Ben's been... Thank you, Ben. He's done a really good job, I think. And also, I wanted to say, because they never get thanked. I wanted to thank Andrew, who puts all my things up on the internet. And like I don't know whether any of you know, I'm not very good with tech or anything that requires organisation. And the other person I want to thank is Venetia, who booked some of my podcast guests for me. I never thank her either. And the other day, we have this little group where we make our plans, a little WhatsApp group. And Andrew, I think he maybe had a few drinks when he wrote this. He said, "I think you ought to thank Venetia for, just to say a word." And I think he hadn't realised that he put it in the wrong group. He thought he'd messaging me. So I sent Venetia a message saying thank you. She replied to his previous... She saw his message that he'd sent and realised it, and she said, if I expected James to thank me for what I do, that would be to hold him to higher standards than I hold my husband. And I thought, yes, this is exactly my kind of woman and the sort of person I want working for me. Someone who doesn't give me any of that kind of whiny girl nonsense. So thank you, Venetia. Anyway... I'm really looking forward to meeting some of you. And you won't all be able to buy me a drink, I don't think, and because as you know, I'm a complete lightweight. I'll be able to cope with about a pint. Is there anything else you wanted to say before we just bugger
Oh,
off?
not really, other than I honestly do think the perpetrators are counting on most people being just completely livid and leaving it to other people. So as long as you don't do that, if you take responsibility for the orbit around you, everybody you know and you touch, you can save them and yourself. And I think that's all you need to do. Be very pleasantly selfish to rescue yourself and all of the people in your contact. If you all do that, then I've said to other people, they'll say, well, what will happen? If we make their current plan non-viable, they'll have to either withdraw or become much more overt. Either of those is better than what they're doing.
Oh, they'll love being overt. They really will. They'll get overt on our asses.
But if they get very overt, like alien landing, alien invasion.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Yeah. Right, see you at the pub, everyone, and thank you very much, Mike Yeadon.
Yes.
Thank you, and thank you all for coming.